we're in a moment in history where society is really, really changing. European Americans in America are declining as a population. Populations of color from South America, from Africa, from the Middle East, from Asian countries are coming to America, despite recent efforts to perhaps make that more difficult by the current administration. But yeah, this society is changing, and it's just not, things are not the way they were. And things have been born out of all the discussions that people have had and the struggles that people have worked their way through over the years. And that's kind of where we're at now. If you don't know your own history, or if you don't know the history of the United States, then you're sort of at a disadvantage. You really can't look forward because you have nothing to look back to see how did that happen, or why is that going on? What's the roots of that? Why was that okay? How did that get developed? How did that then turn on itself within communities of color? How did that process happen? And it, you know, is predicated in the standard of European American white. That's the roots of all of this. It's the connection also to the issue of racism. Like, why do we hold on to racism? You know, what's the advantage to that? And we can talk about what that is, but you know, that is what all of this is predicated on. And ultimately, to have a better understanding of what those roots and what those issues stemmed from, and then how are we dealing with it right now? What do we know right now? Just the fact that we can articulate and sit and talk about it is kind of major.
Hello? Hello?
Come towards me.
Ugh. Where am I supposed to go? Even the street signs look different, and I don't know how to act. Nobody does things like I do.
Oh, you'll get used to it.
Feels like I'm on another planet.
We're all people. We do basically the same things. You just have to learn to do it our way.
The first thing I learned is that in the US, we do not touch people. In Latin America, if we start talking, it's natural that we touch.
I know, right? If I went around kissing people, there'd be a call into the HR's office. But that's the most normal thing in Puerto Rico.
And even between genders. I mean, with your higher ups, you'd be a little more formal, but with your coworkers, you could just be like, hey, how are you?
Sexual harassment, I had never heard of it. We touch everyone in Brazil, even people we don't know.
Yeah, all these guys thought I was hitting on them. I didn't even think about what was going on until a friend told me.
A lot of socializing in our culture. It's very affectionate.
Yes, people can be very
Loud.
Loud, open. When we are together as a family, we speak fast and loud. We use our hands. That's totally normal in our culture.
Well, I'm used to it now. I've got my regular hands, and I got my American hands.
For my first 6 months in the States, the most common question I heard was,
What?
Even though I come from an English-speaking country, I put my words in different orders. I pronounce things differently.
Everybody always asks,
Where are you from?
I try really hard to sound more American.
When we got together in Germany, she was still finishing high school, and I was doing my civil service about an hour away.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm getting from this.
I'll get there. So, we lived about an hour apart, and an hour felt like a very long distance, and sometimes we wouldn't even manage to meet during the week. I mean, it's an hour. We could have just met in the middle, that's half an hour, but now I think it's nothing.
Yeah, now we drive half an hour just to get a decent burger.
Right? So, distance is very different, and an hour is just whatever.
Someone once said the biggest difference between Europe and the US is that Europeans think 100 miles is a long distance, and Americans think 100 years is a long time.
Okay, class, let's review our colors. Alejandro, we're listening now.
He cries all the time.
He doesn't understand anything.
It's because he's stupid.
Nuh-uh. It's because he's Argentinian.
All right, Alejandro, it's time for ESL you can go now.
I'm glad I'm not Argentinian.
Wow.
What?
Sometimes I forget that it's really hard in the beginning. People who've been here for a long time kind of take it all for granted.
But when you're new, you also realize how lucky you are. There, you can hardly get the basics. Here,
You can get almost anything. There,
schools are a dead end. Here,
everyone has a right to an education. There,
I couldn't find a job. Here,
everyone can work at something. When my mom moved to Miami, she didn't know any English, and she was applying at this button factory in a garment district. So this bright-eyed teenager walks into this old, probably Jewish guy's storefront, and she was being interviewed and remembers him saying things and asking questions and not really knowing what he was asking. And she's just like, yes, yes, yes. And he hired her because he liked her moxie. And he's like, you came in here, didn't know the language, and just, charmed me. That's what this business is. It's being charming and sewing moms.
In Haiti, after my baccalaureate, which means secondary school, I went to school to learn how to teach. And when I got here, I had to think about different ways, because if I wanted to teach, I would have to go back to school again. I got an offer to teach at Ginger Latin, but I couldn't go to school and work because then I wouldn't have time or money to take care of my kids. So I had to change my career. I go to this company and they ask me what I want to do and what I did before. And I remember in my interview saying, whatever it is that you need somebody to do, I would be happy to learn. After a few months, I was in quality control, kind of like an inspector. And I kept at that same place for 22 years.
My mom was a housekeeper. She worked for about 10 families, cleaning a house a day. Later, she worked for a rectory. She took a lot of pride in it. Someone from the rectory told me they once came into a room and saw my mom cleaning the underside of a table. Who does that? I had intense chores as a kid. I remember we would pick up these little snails from the beach, hundreds of them, and then harvest the snails out of the shells with sewing needles. It took forever, and the whole point was to make this rice dish that I didn't even like. The family ethic was always...
Put your head down and work. Don't rock the boat. Be grateful you are here.
my grandparents didn't have great expectations. They didn't care what you did as long as you worked. My parents cared. My parents almost forced me and my brothers to go to private school. They had a daily quiz of, did you do your homework? And I want to see it. They were rigid, very firm, and they were consistent. They wanted us to go further in life.
And nothing gets you further like speaking the language. If you want to be a part of our economy, part of our citizenry, then it fundamentally starts with respecting our culture. I don't expect people to come into this country already speaking English, but I personally have an expectation that they want to speak English and they want their children to be comfortable with most Americans, not just their particular nationality.
I work at the Community Learning Center, which is the adult basic education program for the city. And when immigrants come in, we're required by the law to ask, why do you want to learn English? As one of our interview questions. And they look at me like, of course I want to learn English. I live here. What kind of question is that?
I can't write in English. I know what I want to say, but I can't put the words together. At home, I'm a journalist, and here I'm going to college with people much younger, with less experience, and I can't keep up. I feel so ashamed, so stupid.
You're not stupid.
I went to the writing center, and they set me up with an undergrad. They meant well, but there was no help at all.
Of course not. You write much better than most undergrads. They can't help you because they don't know how to write the way you do in Portuguese. So you have to find somebody who writes better than you do, who knows more than you do.
That's right. I'm going to go back to them and tell them I want a journalism graduate student as a tutor. I will find someone who is willing to take the time to listen to what I'm trying to say and to help me find the right words or expressions.
Then you can write like the pro you are. When I was young, I knew Korean really well. It was my first language.
My dad wanted us to be bilingual, but it did end up really happening.
Once my sister and I were exposed to English in a school setting, we both lost our Korean and
We spoke English at home. Well, when I started kindergarten, my parents realized they were falling behind on my bilingual education.
My parents sent me to Korean school for 8 years, which is like every Saturday we went to learn Korean.
They sent me to a Spanish language school in the first grade.
But I would just hang out with my friends and not really learn anything.
I hated it, and I didn't learn any Spanish at all.
Now I really regret it because it would have been great to actually communicate with family, especially my grandmother whose English is not very good.
Well, finally in high school, I decided that it was important for me to get the language. I ended up traveling to Central and South America and loving it.
I want to talk to my parents about things that are a little bit more profound than what I want to eat for dinner. Sometimes if we do try talking about things that are a little bit deeper, we have to use translators and go word by word. And you can never just convey exactly what you were trying to say.
Well, now I speak Spanish all the time in my work helping immigrants.
I find myself as an adult learning to speak Portuguese again.
When I came here, I spoke my native language, Creole, a combination of English and tribal languages. My American mom couldn't understand it very well. She asked my brother not to speak it so I can learn English more quickly.
We spoke Portuguese at home growing up, but I have trouble with it. I can't get it to sound the way I know it's supposed to.
I always feel like an outsider in Sierra Leone community. I can understand some Creole, but I can't communicate.
Yeah, and then the accent in the Azores is different of that of mainland Portuguese, kind of like a country accent. And there's a real sense of shame and humiliation around that.
The language is a huge barrier and a huge source of pain.
I have a much easier time learning and speaking Spanish. There's a lot less emotion involved.
I don't speak Creole out of embarrassment. I think I'll sound like an idiot.
It actually is tough when you're surrounded by your own people. In Lynn, sometimes you can't find any Latino who can speak English. There are all these stores owned by Dominicans. Anywhere you go, you can communicate in Spanish. People will be mad if they go into a store and there's no one who speaks Spanish. And because, again, you go to these stores and find everything from the DR, it's difficult to get exposed to the new culture. Where I live, everything around me is very Latino. It's only when I go to work that I have to change.
Alejandro, can you come here?
Hey Dad, what's up?
It's this letter I got from the government. I don't understand everything it says. Can you read it while I'm at work?
Yeah, of course.
I wish I was more like you kids with the language. You learn so fast. You went to kindergarten with no English at all, and now you speak like a native. Me? I'm hopeless.
Dad, you're like one of the smartest people I know. You have 5 degrees.
Yes, in Argentina. Here, I never come across as an intellectual or sophisticated because of my accent and bad grammar. People assume that there's something wrong with me.
I'm sorry, Dad. I hated that you had to give up teaching.
It doesn't matter. We didn't come here for us. We came here for you. And you're going to do whatever you want. Well, time for me to go. Those rooms aren't going to clean themselves.
I don't want to give up my language here.
You don't have to. But isn't it more important that you can work and go to school and buy things in a store?
I do want to be a part of this culture, but losing my language would be like losing a part of me.
Why? Words are words are words.
It's hard to explain. Chinese language is unique because it's pictographic. They have culture inside of this language. Also, it has a long history, more than 5,000 years old. From the words, you can know how people were living long ago. Like money. Money, the sign is a seashell. Okay, so a long, long time ago, people used seashells for money. History there. Say, tea. The character tea, basically it's nature. It's grass. Then inside, there are people. It shows people in balance, in, what's the word I want to say, in relationship with nature, not destroying. Harmony. People in harmony with nature. Long time ago, people lived this way. In the fields, in nature, green grass and green world. This is what T says. The single word tells all of this. Many words tell a story. That's where I would lose. My story.
I'm proud of my story too. I'm proud of the people who were here before me.
Roll Chapel, April 12th, the year of our Lord 1906. My dear son John, I once more write a line to know how you are all getting on. As very lonely, as it was the first Christmas without I having a letter, and I would die happy in the knowledge that you are all doing well. If God permits me to live so long that I should hear from you,
I will expect an answer to this as soon as you receive it.
my dear child, I conclude what could be my last letter, hoping you are all well and to hear from you soon. With fondest love to you, I remain, dear John, your loving mother, Mary.
Classic Irish Catholic guilt.
And by the way, if you sent anything home, it had to have money in it. My grandmother sent a picture of her family, and the way they received it in Ireland was, sure, I know what they look like, but it was an empty card.
When our family came here, it was everyone. Fathers, sisters, cousins. By 1890, the whole clan was here.
And you know, they didn't have it easy. They came over and worked in the mills. My grandfather and his siblings all married late in life because they were working. Parents died and grandparents had to raise young children. It wasn't easy.
But we did it right back then. Family members sponsored each other. When you got here, you had the church and the whole community to help you out. We weren't taken care of by the government like these immigrants today.
Wait, what? What's that about immigrants today? We're doing it wrong?
No, not exactly.
How is what I did any different from what people have been doing for hundreds of years?
That is a controversial question.
When we came here from Mexico, we felt so privileged. We didn't feel like the country owed us anything. We worked, and we worked, and we worked. And because of our fantastic work ethic, we have a great life. But now everybody wants to come here like, oh, come to the United States and get everything for free.
I work with refugees. They get help finding housing and $1,000 per person, but in 3 months, they have to be self-supporting. 3 months. And this is after they're going through the whole long application process and whatever made them refugees in the first place.
No, we all waited, okay? We waited, we got our papers and our vaccinations. We waited and we did it legally.
The whole country was founded to escape oppression. So someone takes the risk of coming here without papers because they believe that strongly in what the U.S. has to offer, and those are the people you want to kick out?
If people come in illegally, we don't know who they are. And we haven't democratically decided to let them in. We don't know if they like our laws. We don't know if they are criminals. We don't know if they're terrorists. We have to prioritize our own citizens above illegal aliens. What? Am I not supposed to say that?
Even if we're against illegal immigration, a person is not illegal. They may be doing something wrong in your eyes, but they still are full human beings.
As a psychologist, I treated a woman who entered the country illegally. At home in El Salvador, a gang had been extorting her brother for money, and when she couldn't pay, when he couldn't pay, they abducted her. So she managed to escape. She reached the U.S. border and turned herself in. In order to win her case for asylum, she had to be able to tell her story. And I can't even begin to say how horrific it was. Here I was helping her to win her case, and I still felt awful for making her relent.
We are at war. And I think it's not war against immigrants. It's war against human beings. Until all Americans understand that, it's going to be harder and harder to fight back. Some people don't see that and don't see themselves under threat because, oh, I was born here, or, oh, I am white. Unfortunately, I think no one is safe.
I read earlier what you performed here and listened to it. I prefer listening to it. It was very good and very moving. But the question that I kept coming up with over and over, and I'd like to start with our cast, if they could respond, and then we'll draw in the audience. What does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be an American? Obviously, it's very valuable because people are risking their lives to come here. There are native-born Americans who are having a fit about letting, quote, others in. So, what does it mean to be an American?
I think for me personally, to be an American, it means like to have a culmination of several experiences through generations, just like having your ancestors like lived through whatever it is that charged them to come here, whether it was by force or by intention, by personal intention, and to have to reconcile with other people's experiences as well, that to recognize that there were people here and we're here now, and everyone's trying to slice a little bit of whatever it is that they envision as like a goal, a dream, and like to be an American here in this time and age. It's just to acknowledge all that we come from somewhere, we're all fighting for something. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I guess I didn't come to a conclusive answer when thinking about it, because I just think about my own experience being one of very few, I think one of maybe like 4 or 5 people in my family who was born in the US, and that does not include my immediate family. So in my immediate family, I am the only person born in the US. So I think about that, and living in Trinidad and being a Yankee, and then living in America and still not really fully fitting in certain communities where it would seem like I would. So I think being an American is like not exactly clear for me. It's never been as simple as, yes, because I was born here, I'm American. Because my family doesn't act the way Americans do, even if they participate in American culture. And so
Let me interrupt you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What is that, though? Participating in American culture.
Yeah.
What does that mean? With so many people here with different backgrounds, culturally, religiously, what is that? What is American culture?
For my family,
Yes.
American culture is, I don't want to say it's not consumerism, but it's the ability to create a lifestyle that maybe for some reason in another country would be a lot more difficult to obtain. I think we're from a rather, I don't consider it poor, but to other Trinidadians it might be considered a poor part of the country. And so coming to the US and working affords us a lifestyle down there that we wouldn't be able to afford if we just stayed there.
So opportunity is a clear component of being an American.
The work component.
The work component.
Is what I associate working with America. I associate like being able to buy, like the consumer culture is part of that. So it's the work and the consumption are the things that I think of in relation to my family.
And
Yes, sir.
honestly, I agree with Athena. I would say opportunity would be the number one when it comes to, if someone asks me like you just did, what is it to be an American? Opportunity. because everything else is a little vague, and I don't have a clear answer for you of what it is to be an American. I know the perception.
Okay, what do you think the perception is?
You know, the perception. I mean, shit. Excuse my language. I'm sorry. That's a little vague as well. But I mean, the perception. I believe it's baseball and hot dogs and
Apple pie.
Apple pie. Everyone's getting along, and that doesn't seem to be true nowadays. I can only give you a perception of what America to me is. But that's all.
Yeah, you're next.
So I definitely grew up with the standard American dream. You can be the poorest person in the country, and if you work hard enough, you can become the richest person in the country. And that there's opportunity is a major through line, I think, there. But I think recently it's an evolving definition to be an American, and I think that's the positive, maybe, that we have the ability to redefine what being an American is. And I would hope that in the coming years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we reestablish and redefine what being an American is, because when I think back to what the stereotypical American hot dog, baseball, apple pie, it seems outdated to me. It seems like something that we don't need to strive for, we don't need to try and harken back for. It doesn't fit what our communities are becoming. So I think it's something that in my past definition no longer applies.
And how many people in the audience consider themselves an American? Go on, raise your hands. Okay. And what does that mean to you? Yes.
It's very complex because at this particular moment in time, I'm not so proud to be an American.
Okay.
So, while I define myself as an American because all of my grandparents were immigrants who didn't speak English, who passed on to their children, my parents and my aunts and uncles, a kind of dream and a lifestyle which they then passed on to me. It's actually a moment in my life when it's a very emotional issue, because for a very long time I would have said I was very proud to be an American. But the values that I'm seeing in the politics of this country right now are so disturbing to me that it's very complicated, and I'm pretty disturbed over what I see as American is not just any one thing. There are many ways of being American, and I have to own up to my own prejudices and my own preconceptions. I mean, I've grown up in the Northeast. I'm actually fearful of going into Mississippi. And I'm, a white woman of a certain age. I shouldn't necessarily be fearful of that, and yet I'm afraid of what I will confront.
So you're also alluding to a certain set of values, and we talked about opportunity, a certain set of values. Anyone else have anything to contribute to what it is to be an American? A lot of hands went up. I could call on you. Okay.
I mean, all I can say is for me, and to be an American is to be part of the most culturally diverse country on the planet. One of the things that touched me on the play was the need to learn English, to assimilate, to fit in. And I think that's important, but it's also important to be bilingual. And my culture, my heritage from Costa Rica, and that's still very, very important to me. And yeah, not always proud to be an American, but we have the power to change things. We still have freedom of speech. We still have rights.
How many of you have traveled abroad anywhere?
Yeah.
Okay. Have any of you ever been identified as an American without having had a conversation with someone? Just if you're at a party or a gathering and you're interacting and someone comes over to you and they say, "You're an American, aren't you?" Has that happened to anyone? What do they see? What is it that they see that identifies us as Americans that we hold on to so tightly, and at this moment in our history, we are, or at least our administration is afraid to let, quote, outsiders in? What are we protecting? Yes, ma'am.
I travel a lot, and I am from Peru, and I am living here for a long time. And when I go to other countries, the people that, like, you go to a restaurant and the tables that are very loud and not letting talk each other, they are competing who talks the more, and they don't let other people talk. Yeah. Those are Americans. And then I ask, and they are Americans.
And they are Americans.
Yes.
Okay, so we're loud. Okay.
And also here in Paris, it happens the same. Like in my country, I took my husband to my country, and people are very respectful. In Paris, when one is talking, the other ones are listening. And like after the person finished to talk, then everybody pauses, and then somebody else starts. It's different.
So it's a different manifestation of respect, to let that person speak and be heard and listened to, and then someone else can, as opposed to breaking in on a conversation like I did with this young woman over here. Wait a minute. Okay, so let me ask you this, all of you, actors, audience, to what extent do immigrant populations feel obliged to assimilate? Because a lot of what we watched here also reflected the conflict between your culture at home and the culture that you are embracing or trying to adapt to as Americans. So what do we do about that? How much assimilation? Should we all assimilate to the point that nobody can be distinguished as anything except Americans? And we're not quite sure what that means right now.
I don't think that would be an honest representation of yourself to essentially make yourself a neutral, non-entity. I don't know. Because even if your culture, for example, is, a couple of generations removed, you're not as close to the source of it, that still informed how your parents raised you, how your grandparents were raised, and you carry that with you. So it doesn't really seem to make sense to just kind of, I feel like there's an importance in carrying what you have and not feeling the need to change that. Now there are some practical things for assimilation. If you can't speak the language, that's difficult, and it is difficult if you are only staying in certain areas where your language is spoken because of convenience. But I don't think that it's also the fault of it's not it's not the sole responsibility of people who are being integrated in our culture to assimilate. I think that there needs to be assimilation happening both ways.
And what would that look like?
Yeah.
What would that look like?
What would that look like?
Yeah.
I get very upset when I think about
I can't remember what country it was, but they basically banned hijabs. And I was like, you can't, it was French, okay, that's what I thought. And I was like, that's not okay. That's not okay for you to say, being French is most important, and you cannot carry this piece of your culture, irrespective of the fact that you think it's important, even if I disagree with the methodology or the beliefs behind it. Like, I don't think that that's acceptable. That level of, that is an example where you say, I don't agree with you, but it's part of your culture, and I assimilate to your culture by allowing you to exist in our space that we are like creating together. Like, you bring that to me and I say, okay, fine, I don't like it, but this is what it is, and you learn French. There you go. That's what that would look like. And you keep your hijab, you speak French.
Let me, I'll get to this. Let me give you another example. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Here's another example. It's a little trickier. In those countries where female mutilation is part of the culture, and they come to the United States, and the parents, this is our culture, this is what we're going to do, and then somehow somebody finds out and they rush in and they say, no, you can't do this is, it's god awful, it's this, it's that, and they snatch the child, the young woman away, and so, how do we accommodate that? It's one thing about what you wear.
Right, but that's a health issue.
But no, it's a cultural issue too.
Well, yeah, it is.
Okay. It's a cultural issue too.
Yeah.
Okay? Just like the headscarf is a fashion issue. Okay, but it's different. It is different. And I guess what I'm trying to find the road into is, what do we do about really profound differences among us that tend to violate one or the other's ethical standards, religious beliefs, work ethics? How do we do that? How do we hold on to that? Because that's becoming an issue in this country. And there have been some pretty ugly cases over the years about that. How do we do that? Or do we do it at all? And they were all quiet.
I think we should do it because when immigrant parents, like some Muslim countries that mutilate girls' genital, come to this country, they know they need to assimilate. That will be human right. The baby is not old enough to permit to be mutilated.
It's tricky. It's tricky. You were going to say something. Yes.
That's very right. To speak to what you're speaking about, I think that's such a difficult topic to tackle because it does involve the fact that some women who've grown up with that culture do seek that out. They do see that as being a necessary part of becoming a woman and seek. It is such an ingrained part of who they are as far as I cannot be a woman, I cannot achieve the things I want to achieve without this part of my life, and it goes so vastly against what we would consider normal or acceptable as far as US culture, that for us it's like, how could you ever believe that that is something that would be good for you? But being able to find a medium place where there's not a judgment of that desire for that action or that part of their culture, but there's also not a shame or a banning of a part of someone's culture if they personally seek it out.
So there shouldn't be any judgment.
Right.
Yes.
And then there's the part of that, the flip side of that is that there are a lot of situations when it comes to genital mutilation where the woman who is being mutilated is not necessarily completely on board or wants to be there or feels that they have a choice in that situation. And that's, I think, where that topic gets far bigger than our conversation today.
I just thought I'd throw it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is complex.
It's very complex.
It is more than you know, getting the right passport and green card and finding a job and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
It is far more complex, and whatever it is that identifies us as Americans, apparently it's very valuable, because now we got a whole bunch of people who are scared to death and don't want to let anybody else in. And what I want to know, I want your thoughts on this. You know, what is it we're afraid of? What is it we think these people are going to do? You
I think that it is not my view, but I think it's fear of something's going to be taken away from me. I'm saying me. You know, I'm going to lose something in this, and it's also there always has to be somebody that gets all of the garbage from it. You know, there always has to be an underdog. There always has to be somebody that you can feel more superior to, or whatever. However, you know, I feel it's part of. I think that one of the fundamental values in the U.S. is individualism.
Yes.
And I feel like that comes up against. You know, there isn't this collective sense of I care about you, and I care about you, and I care about you, and our goal is to live in harmony or whatever. It's that I'm protecting me, I'm protecting my family, I'm protecting mine, and I think that it's a lot to do with privilege too. I feel like being part of the United States, you know, there's this concept that, you know, we are the best. I mean, we are a democracy. That could go disputed, yeah. But you know, and that you know, we do have some fundamental rights that lots of countries don't have, and that's not to belittle that either.
Right.
I feel like our worldview isn't inclusive. It's not part of our fabric of our culture, inclusivity. And so that extends even more when it's somebody that's really different from you, or speaks another language from you, or if you feel superior and they come here, then they have to do what we want them to do to fit in. That's sort of how I feel.
Do you think, or I mean all of you, do you think we would be able to look at immigration not as a political issue, but as a human issue? Towards the end of your presentation, you said something to that effect, that you know this is a human issue. How do we get people to look at this as a human issue so that locking up 1,500 children from different countries is just not acceptable? For whatever reason, it's just not acceptable. You can't put children in cages. And that to me, okay, I'm editorializing a little bit, but that to me is the humanity, the human issue here. What is it, our privilege that has prevented this? Is it the fear of losing, you know, this sort of poverty mentality, you know, I got mine, I want to keep mine, and I don't want to give any to you?
And it's also that feeling of superiority. Okay. In other words, you know, I know, but a feeling of superiority, I guess that says it all, that, you know, unless you can fit into my worldview and my country in the way that I see it, and that's the best way, and we are the best country, and we are the best person. You know.
It's our way or the highway.
Exactly. But I think it's all interrelated. I mean, I think this concept of not caring and being, I mean, this is a harsh, obviously there are softer pieces to it, but, you know, not being inclusive, not caring, that's not our fundamental value. I mean, that's what I'm struck by. I'm struggling to learn Spanish, and I'm going places to immerse myself in it. And part of it is because I love the values. I love that feeling of, I keep saying inclusivity, you know, caring that I don't think exists here, beyond a very narrow circle of whatever your narrow circle is.
Any other comments?
I think it has to do with the economic model. Capitalism is competitive. Being competitive is the idea that things that you can enjoy in this country as we do. In that if you don't have enough to save, then you're going to, someday you're not going to have more. And that's what rich people do. But in other communities, in other societies, the material part is not that important as is here in the TV. You need to have everything. Every summer you need to buy new equipment of this and that, the winter clothes, the new furniture. You need, and then you're never happy. You're always thinking, I will be happy if I have this, I will be happy if I have these other things. But I think it's the capitalism.
Thank you. Shelley, you had your hand. Thank you. You had your hand up.
I think if there's one theme that has sort of played out in all four of the dialogues that we've had, is that there's an erosion of our humanity going on. At the point at which that we stop seeing someone or some group of people as fellow human beings, I mean, what was Abu Dhabi? What were the Japanese-American internment camps? What was Nazism? They were all predicated on a combination of factors, racism being the paramount #1 factor, and economics. It's always about money. Eventually, it's always down to money. And it's that, lack of understanding or ability to see somebody else as a human being. Who would lock up children? Who would do those experiments? Who would dismiss total populations as these are the good people we're letting in and these are the people we're keeping out? There's something fundamentally wrong with that. And I think when we hear that or see that within our own comfort zones, we have to challenge that because it's wrong and it's scary and it leads to horrible things. And we've seen those horrible things play out all over. It's not just about, the guy with the strange hair who's in charge right now. It's not just that. It's not, a bureaucrat who pushed the screw and made it happen. It's really important that we do not be quiet. We don't go away quietly. We don't turn our heads away from things that we see. I'm not talking constantly about politics of confrontation, but if something is wrong, step up, speak up, stand up, and do something. Because things are falling apart. There's a wonderful book written by, can I remember the author? Of course not. Four Things Fall Apart. Takes place in Nigeria. Thank you. When society breaks down, it's a ripple effect. Yes. It's not one country. It's predicated on human beings and their interactions, and it spreads like a disease. So I hope that as we go through life and as we see one another, because I think there's a lot of humanity in this room, that as we go out in life, we continue to be human beings, even though the evidence sometimes presents itself in a way that people reduce to something less than humankind. Yeah. That'll be our downfall of that new environment. So of course we have something to do with this as well.
I also think that we have to remember that the country is founded on trauma. The trauma of several groups of people. Like even the newest groups of people. Like the former professor of Italian studies at Harvard told me about his experience coming to the US and how when he got here, the Irish neighborhoods treated him like shit, were absolutely terrible to him. And that's something that stayed with him. That didn't it's not like he goes around mistreating anybody who he finds out is Irish. But the country is founded on the traumas of so many different people. And so it's very easy for people in power to appeal to that trauma. Because trauma doesn't go away. It just basically gets covered over with things like consumerism and just trying to just be okay. Even if you never think about trauma, even if you don't think you qualify, somebody carries something, even if it's from their cousin, even if it's not themselves, they carry that. And so it's easy to appeal to that fear of not having enough, of going back to whatever it is that they came from, and people aren't aware of that. So when people are just like, oh, these people are going to come in and take away, people just feel activated. They're just like, I don't know why I'm so scared, but like, I can't feel threatened, I need to feel safe. My safety is so important. Like that sense of what little I have, what home I have is not really, because it's not based in community, people do feel alone. And so they're more likely to have really radical opinions about who they want and don't want here. Because there is no community that makes people feel as safe as they would otherwise.
Let me share with you something a friend of mine said. She's Native American and she does anti-racism work. I've never forgotten it, and I'm determined to make this saying famous. And she said in one workshop, a country built on stolen land and slave labor is bound to have some difficulties. And we're still dealing with that. Somebody talked about a ripple effect. Well, the ripple effect of trauma just spreads out. And you can't deny it. You just can't. I mean, it'll come back for you. And this is part of what we're grappling with. Someone had their hand up over here? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was going to say that we can talk about being in a country where we can do anything we want, we can reach our dreams, we can whatever it may be, right? And everything is there for everybody. But there are children in cages right now. And what are we doing? We're sitting in a room talking and being very humanistic, or whatever the word is, about how wonderful we all are about thinking about these things. But what are we actually doing? And why are we in a country where everything is supposed to be there for us to access, but nobody has access to getting these kids out of the cages? I mean, I'm not there, so I feel like pathetic because I'm over here and not whatever they are. But I don't understand why people aren't doing anything.
I think we're all guilty.
Yeah.
And I know I am, because I sit around and I watch all this, whether it's children being snatched from their parents at the border, and so many other horrific things, and I keep waiting. Somebody's got to do something. Somebody's got to get up and say something. Where's so-and-so, et cetera, et cetera. And I think those days are over. I think the somebody is us. That's what every day that goes by, every day I read the paper, I look less and less for the, quote, leader, and start wondering, well, Joyce, what the hell are you going to do? How do you make this better or wipe this out? And how do you reach other people? So one way is I do this. And when Shelley first asked me to moderate, I really didn't want to do it. And I have to come all the way from New Hampshire, and I was like, oh my God. But I started thinking, well, maybe you can plant some ideas. And the arts are universal. It transcends any border, transcends any boundary, and it's a powerful tool. And it's one place to start. So I would hope, some of us go out here figuring out what we can do, because things are not getting better. And what I also see, I want to go back to your performance here. There was a section where someone was talking about, we got in here legally. We follow the rules. Let them follow the rules. No. How does this work? I think, how do we begin to measure the difference in circumstances that drive people to come to the United States? Some come just to get a better life, and they have the power and the privilege and the time to go through all the right steps. Fill out the forms, wait, da-da. And it is a lengthy process. I don't think the average person understands how long that process takes. So we got to get rid of that image of somebody just opening the border and people running in, because that doesn't happen, okay? So that's one set of circumstances. But there are other circumstances that are driving these people. Violence in their homes, political differences. They're seeking asylum. which is a whole lot different than seeking, I just want to live in America, reap the benefits. What is that about?
Well, just as Ms. just said, that no longer can you get asylum running away from domestic violence or gang violence, or that's not allowed anymore.
Well, I know what he said.
I just mean it's just getting narrower and narrower and narrower. You have to come with
So how do you fight against that? That's the question. How do you fight against that? And how do you stop that kind of poison from dripping into your glass of wine or water every day, so you end up saying, we got here the legal way, and then you're in your high horse. I don't see why they can't do it. Yes, ma'am.
I think that in this country there is no legal way, because the first immigrants came here and they killed the native in New Mexico. When I visited one time in New Mexico, and the Native Americans told me that all the male they cut their food, so they could eat them. In Mexico, in the tribes in north of Albuquerque, and they still have that trauma. It's a trauma that goes from generation to generation, where only recently you see more Native Americans in politics, but in the past they really were not permitted to, because even now they receive some little money to keep their, how you say, like handicap mentally. And there is no legal way in this country, because even now, we say the past, slavery, is this country was created out of the massacre of societies.
And slave labor.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's happening now. United States, and I feel guilty because I live, I benefit. And I'm not saying that there are better countries than the United States. Every country has their good things and bad things. But the most important thing is to acknowledge it and to put it out there. So people will not say it like you were mentioning, oh, I came the legal way. What legal way? When the United States goes to Central America, they take advantage of the economy, make people fight with each other, took the land of Colombia and made a new country, Panama, to do the Panama Canal.
Yes.
And they lend little money to poor countries to high interest, and they went and ripped their territories even now. So what legal way? When these countries are so poor, their infrastructure is so bad that they have to come out of the country for what the United States and other countries did. So there is no legal way. People who come, like you say, is because they are desperate, because they are taking action. And I am happy to be in this country, especially in this area, because I have other opportunities that I don't have in my country. Not everywhere in this country, because I went to the south, I went to the west, and they don't treat me the same. Then I feel here at home. And there are so many things that capitalism do good for people, like make people efficient, competitive, have a goal, ambition, but everything have a good and a bad part. And so pointing out when people say, I came the legal way, they don't know anything. So now there is a lot of tools that people who want to do something can do just by making a video, explaining their point of view in a respectful way.
Yes.
Because violence and insult don't take you anywhere.
There's some people way back there. I thought I saw your hand up. Maybe you were just scratching your hair. But if you would like to have a comment that you want to contribute.
I was scratching my head, but since he called on me, I think having traveled abroad quite a few times to both Europe and Asia, multiple times, one thing that I noticed going back to what we were talking about earlier is I think a big part of the American stereotype is probably ignorance. I think that has a lot to do with going back on what you guys said over here about being privileged and being, like for myself, I was born and raised in Quincy in Boston, right around here, so I mean, I can't sit there and say that I had to fight my way to be able to be an American citizen and have the rights that I do have that a lot of other countries aren't privileged to have. But having gone to multiple other countries where I know people they'll pay amounts of money to marry someone to be able to get a passport, something as crazy as that you would never even think of doing, but to them that is, we have a gift and we really take it for granted.
Thank you. Anyone else? Back there? Going once, going twice? Not a word. Not a word. Well, we're coming up to like the 5-minute mark, and I don't want to keep people here all night because we could very well do that. But what I would like to close us with are any comments that have come to mind during this conversation that you want to make sure get heard. I'll start with the cast.
I think two very important things for me that could offer at least a discussion about a solution as to what we can do to move forward or improve our standing in what it is to be an American, what it is to be accepting or repulsed by the idea of the other is just accountability. Your own personal accountability, what biases that you might have within yourself, about certain perceptions that you may have about the other, about your own social standing, the people around you in your communities, how your politics align with that. And also ancestral accountability. It's this is something that a lot of people, especially young kids today, we see a lot of people fighting back on that, oh, it's not my fault, I didn't bring slaves here, I didn't do X, Y, Z, I didn't lynch that young boy in the tree in the 50s. No, you didn't. But you come from a lineage of people who have done that and have benefited from that, so it's the accountability of understanding not just your own personal responsibility in today, in 2018, but accountability and acknowledgement of the history of where we come from and why we're here and what involvement internally within our own borders and externally, how we relate to the world. And the second thing would be empathy through exposure. Actually, the gentleman who was just speaking about his travel experiences is a personal friend of mine. And that's something that we like talking about a lot, is just exposure, just going around and embracing different cultures. As I travel too, within the country, but outside of the country, just to see what it's like, just to hear some stories. What does gentrification look like in Boston versus Austin, Texas versus Chicago, Illinois? What does development look like in my own home country, the Dominican Republic? How does the landscape change from 13 years ago versus today? How are the people socializing with each other?
and then bringing it back to us here in the United States, it's just to open up to see another person, to see you coming into a room. It's like, all right, what's your deal? What's your story? Why? What about you? Why do I care? But not make it such like an accusative thing. It's some people have it and some people don't. It's just what it is. It's the power for empathy. But I personally believe that there's got to be one right knock somewhere, and it's through, again, exposure. To just sit down, have a cup of coffee, or a couple of beers, or whatever. Just see what happens. I don't know. Maybe I'm hopeful.
Well, that's good. Hope is good. Anyone else?
I would say very similar. Do not, one, make assumptions. Never, as much as you can, don't make assumptions, even if they seem to be positive ones. And certainly when somebody offers you an experience, it's not who's suffering more. It's never that, because there's no way to measure suffering. There's no way, even if something seems not that significant, to measure how deeply that affected that person. I think, say, if I had said to that professor, well, I mean, like, my experience is like far worse, or like whatever, like that's not, you're not building a bridge there, that person gave me an opportunity to understand their experience, and to know their suffering. And when somebody gives you that opportunity, you should take it. Even if you don't want to take it, even if you feel like, why should I care? Like my suffering is more, or why, I don't know. Whatever would stop you from really taking that in and hearing it. To just set it aside for just a little bit, just to hear, because that's really the only way, I feel like, is to really hear each other's suffering, and to not discard it, even if in terms of the physical reality they are not struggling as much as other people. That ability to feel heard is very important, just to being able to communicate at this point, because nobody wants to hear about another person's suffering. And it's not going to work. It's not going to work to keep pitting against each other and saying, well, my suffering is more important. Yes, all of our suffering is important. There are some people who are literally being affected by it right now in ways that you cannot imagine. Their lives are always affected by it, but we can still talk to each other, just a little bit, the tiniest bit.
Thank you. Anyone else that want to?
I just say every day you have the opportunity to empathize with someone who is different than you are, and take that advantage. Take this as a call to action, find a call to action every single day. And as we were saying, we are in a beautiful little democratic bubble up here in England, and that is not the case in the rest of our country. And if you are looking for something to do to make a change, it is out there. You just have to work to find it.
Anyone else up here?
I guess it said everything.
Okay. So, no, anyone out here? Yes, ma'am.
So the question you brought up, or somebody brought up about what makes people afraid, is something I think about a lot as a white person and as somebody who is historically is part of the dominant culture. And I think part of what the problem is it goes back to the original question of what does it mean to be American, and that for so long we've been allowed to just put all of our identities in one bucket and say to be white is to be Christian, is to be American. And so anything that challenges that idea makes people afraid that other aspects of their identity are also being challenged. Like, oh, well, then my Christianity is being challenged, or oh, then my whiteness, or then my female or masculinity is being challenged. And I think if people, as much as I believe in intersectionality, if people can somehow separate those a little more, or we can talk to people having a conversation that just because one part of your identity is changing doesn't mean that every single part is changing. I think that could be a starting point for some people that I know personally, at least. Not to say that we don't need to challenge all aspects of people's identity, but that's just something I've been thinking about this week.
Yes, ma'am.
I just think that one of the other things that makes us somewhat unique is the fact that we're having this conversation and that we're inviting each other to speak, to listen. There are so many other places in the world where people would not be allowed to have these kinds of conversations, to provoke one another, to think about these things, to maybe even make one another feel uncomfortable. There's a certain privilege in that, and I want to thank you all for bringing these various stories to light and to life for the rest of us. And
yes. We need to thank the actors one more time and thank the Multicultural Arts Center for doing this. I encourage you to keep thinking when you leave here. Don't forget this evening, because there's work to be done and everybody can do something. Okay? Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you.